I didn't catch my wife cheating by snooping. I caught her because she got careless and forgot a phone in my kitchen. I'm not the kind of guy who goes looking for reasons to get angry. I'm the kind who tries to keep the machine running, keep the bills paid, keep the lights on, keep the drama off the calendar. I like things that work. Schedules, routines, quiet wins you don't have to explain to anyone. That's probably why the moment that cracked my life open didn't feel like a movie twist or some dramatic reveal. It felt like a normal Tuesday that refused to stay normal. I got home earlier than usual because a client canceled a site walkthrough at the last minute. That almost never happens, so it felt like a small gift. I was in a decent mood for once. Tired, sure, but steady. The kind of tired you can live with. Our house in a quiet Columbus suburb looked exactly the same as it always did. Trimmed yard, 2 cars in the driveway, the porch light that flickered when the wind hit it. The whole place looked like a brochure for "We're doing fine." Inside, the air smelled faintly like Lauren's vanilla candle and the lemon cleaner she liked to use on the counters. For a second, I had that stupid little feeling people chase their whole lives. The sense that this is home, that whatever the world is doing out there can't touch you in here. I dropped my keys, kicked off my shoes, and that's when I noticed something small that didn't fit. Her purse was on the kitchen chair instead of the counter where she always dropped it. Always. Like muscle memory. Seeing it there felt off, like a word misspelled in a sentence you've read 100 times. It suggested she'd come in rushed, distracted, not thinking. By itself, that wouldn't have meant anything. People put things down in different places all the time. I would have forgotten it in 10 seconds. But right beside the purse, half hidden under a folded grocery receipt, was a phone that wasn't mine, and sure as hell wasn't the one I'd seen her use for years. It was smaller than her normal phone and older, the kind people keep as a backup or a burner. It had one of those plain black cases with no stickers, no scratches, no personality. The kind you pick when you don't want it to be noticed or remembered. I didn't even touch it at first. I just stared at it, like it might explain itself if I waited long enough. My first thought wasn't cheating. It wasn't betrayal or some cinematic panic. My first thought was practical and stupid. Maybe it's a work phone. That made sense for about 2 seconds. Lauren didn't have a job that needed a second phone. She did marketing coordination for a medical practice, emails, scheduling, social media posts. They weren't exactly moving national secrets. I picked it up because it was sitting in my kitchen, in my house, like it belonged there. The screen lit up immediately. The lock screen had no family photo, no dog, no picture of us on a vacation or at a wedding, just a blank, dark wallpaper like an erased chalkboard. It buzzed once in my hand, a short vibration, sharp and impatient, like a warning. A notification preview flashed for half a second before the screen locked again. I didn't catch the whole message, just enough. A first name I didn't recognize, and a line that started with, "I can't stop thinking about last," then it disappeared. My stomach did that slow drop, the one that feels like your body is trying to get away from your brain. Like gravity suddenly remembered you exist. I set the phone back down on the chair like it was hot, like touching it any longer would leave a mark. I stood there and waited for the front door to open. Because if I was wrong, if there was a normal explanation, it would walk in any second with grocery bags and a casual smile. That's what I told myself. I counted the seconds without meaning to. Lauren came in about 10 minutes later. Her hair was pulled up, cheeks pink from the cold, a tote bag slung over her shoulder like she'd been out running errands. She kissed me the way she always did, quick, familiar, automatic, then went straight to the sink to rinse something off her hands. I watched her eyes move. She saw the purse. She didn't see the phone, or she pretended not to. That's the thing about moments like this. Your whole marriage turns into a courtroom, and suddenly you're reading every gesture like it's evidence. She started talking about traffic, about how the grocery store was out of something she needed, about a coworker who kept messing up a spreadsheet. The words were normal. The tone was normal. But it felt like she was performing normal. My eyes kept drifting back to that phone on the chair. I could feel my heart punching against my ribs like it wanted out. Finally, when she turned toward the fridge, I slid the phone just a little with my fingertips. Not enough to make a sound. Just enough to make it visible. She froze. Not dramatically. Not obviously. Just for half a second. But half a second is all you need. "That yours?" I asked. She glanced at the phone, and for just a moment, the smallest crack opened in her face. Like a mask slipping. Then it was gone. "Oh, that?" she said, Too quickly. It's an old one. I found it in a drawer at work. We're recycling electronics. In another life, that might have sounded reasonable. In this one, it sounded like a line she'd rehearsed while driving home, saying it out loud until it stopped shaking. It buzzed, I said. Lauren's posture tightened, like a wire pulled too fast. It's probably nothing. People still have the number saved in their contacts. Ethan, it's trash. Trash doesn't get hidden under receipts. Trash doesn't wear a plain black case like camouflage. Trash doesn't receive a message that starts with, I can't stop thinking about last. I didn't say any of that. Not then. I've learned something about lies over the years. The first time you confront someone, you almost never get the truth. The first time is for something else. The first time is when you see how good they are at lying, how fast they adapt, how confident they sound. That tells you what kind of fight you're in. So I let it go? At least, I let it go on the surface. That night, Lauren cooked dinner like she always did. We ate at the table. We talked about a show we were watching. She laughed at something that wasn't that funny, a little too loud, like she needed the sound of laughter to fill space that felt suddenly heavy. I watched her hands when she talked. I watched what she didn't look at. She kept her regular phone with her everywhere, even to the bathroom, even when she went to refill her water. The old phone, though, that one disappeared. Later, when she thought I wasn't paying attention, I saw her slip it into her tote bag with quick, practiced fingers. She went to bed early and said she had a headache. I lay in the dark beside her and listened to her breathing. Slow, even, familiar. And all I could think about was how easy it is to live with someone, share meals, share a bed, share years, and still have no idea what they're doing when you're not looking. The next morning, she left for work like nothing was wrong. Kiss on the cheek. Keys. Tote bag. Door closed. And I did something I never thought I'd do. I opened her laptop. Not because I wanted to punish her. Not because I wanted revenge or drama. I did it because I needed to know if my life was real, or if I'd been living inside a story someone else was editing without me. I knew her password. Of course I did. We'd been married 11 years. We shared streaming accounts, utility logins, a mortgage. Knowing her laptop password wasn't betrayal. It was normal. What I was doing with it. That part felt like stepping into a room I hadn't been invited into. I started with email. Nothing obvious. I checked sent mail. Nothing. I checked trash. Still nothing. Clean. Too clean. Then I noticed something small. A second browser profile. No name. Just a generic icon. I clicked it. The history wasn't empty. It was careful. Careful enough to use a separate profile. Not careful enough to hide what she searched. There were searches for boutique hotels in Chicago. Searches for high-end restaurants in Indianapolis. Searches for how to delete iMessage permanently. How to hide apps. Second phone legality. My hands went cold. I could feel my pulse in my fingertips, like my body was trying to warn me before my brain caught up. And then I found the first real crack in the wall. Not an email. Not in messages. A downloaded PDF tucked neatly inside a folder named Work Docs. It wasn't work. It was a transaction confirmation. A wire transfer. To an account I didn't recognize. And under from, it wasn't her name. It was a company name. A company I did recognize. Because I'd been doing business with them for the last 6 months. And in that moment, the betrayal stopped being just personal. It had a name. One that could destroy me professionally. I stared at that PDF until the letters blurred, because my brain was trying to protect me from what it already understood. My wife didn't just have a second phone. She had a second life, one funded by someone who had access to my work, my schedule, my world. And if that was true, then this wasn't a sloppy mistake. It wasn't a moment of weakness or some emotional spiral. It was organized. I closed the laptop, sat down at the kitchen table, and took a breath that didn't feel like air. I wasn't panicking. Not yet. I was doing the thing I always do when a project goes sideways. Inventory, assess, plan. The difference this time was that the fire was inside my house, and the person holding the match kissed me goodbye every morning. Once you see one lie, everything around it starts to look rearranged. The next few days felt like living in a familiar room where someone had moved all the furniture 2 inches to the left. Nothing looks obviously wrong, but you keep bumping into edges. I kept my face calm. I kept my voice steady. And I watched. I watched how Lauren held her phone with the screen angled away from me. I watched how she suddenly had late meetings on Thursdays. I watched how she dressed differently just to run errands. Hair done. Perfume. Clothes that weren't just nice, but intentional. And I watched my own mind start building a timeline, like a detective who hates his own case. I needed proof. Not because I wanted revenge. Not because I wanted to blow up. I needed proof because if that company name on the wire transfer was connected to my work, this could blow up my career. People like to think affairs are just about feelings and bad choices. They're not. They're leverage. They're openings. And once money gets involved, it stops being private. So I did what I'm best at. I made the situation measurable. First, I checked our finances, quietly. Our joint checking account looked normal. Mortgage paid. Utilities paid. No wild spending. On the surface, everything looked clean. Too clean. The credit card statements, though, had little gaps. Places where Lauren's usual patterns weren't there. Like transactions had been lifted off the board and placed somewhere else. Then I noticed something I hadn't seen before. A new credit card account. Not under my name. Under hers. I'd never seen it. The balance wasn't huge, but the payment history told a story all by itself. On-time payments that didn't come from our joint account. Someone else was feeding that card. I took a day off work and followed her. I'm not proud of it, but I'm also not going to pretend I was above it. When the person you sleep next to starts living a second life, pride becomes a luxury you can't afford. I parked 2 streets away from her office and waited. Hood up, sunglasses on, like some cliche out of a bad movie. The truth is, nobody looks twice at a tired guy sitting in a car during the workday. I watched her building. Around noon, she walked out, phone already in her hand. She looked down at the screen and smiled. Not the polite smile she gave me when I asked how her day was going. A real one. Easy. Unguarded. She got into her car. She didn't drive toward the lunch spots near the office. Didn't stop for coffee. She got on the highway. I followed at a distance, hands tight on the wheel, heart steady in a way that scared me. Because that kind of calm only comes when you've already accepted something terrible without admitting it out loud. She drove to a hotel on the north side of the city. Not a cheap roadside place. A clean, modern chain. Glass doors. Neutral colors. A lobby that smelled like money and fabric softener. The kind of hotel people use when they don't want to feel guilty about what they're doing. She parked, checked her hair in the mirror, adjusted her coat, and walked inside. I stayed in my car. And I waited. 10 minutes later, a black SUV pulled into the lot. Tinted windows. Clean. Newer model. The driver got out, and even from across the parking lot, I recognized him immediately. Nathan Cole. He wasn't just someone. He wasn't a stranger or a faceless guy in a story I could dismiss. He was a vendor contact. A regional account rep for a materials supplier we used on multiple jobs. I'd shaken his hand at site meetings. I'd grabbed lunch with him once during negotiations. He knew my name. He knew what projects I was on. He was the kind of guy who always looked like he'd slept 8 hours and still had energy left over. The kind who made time for the gym. The kind who could wear a simple polo shirt and still look like a threat. He walked across the lot and into the hotel like he belonged there. And the world didn't explode. Nobody screamed. No sirens. No lightning splitting the sky. Just the quiet, irreversible confirmation that my marriage wasn't what I thought it was. I sat in my car for almost an hour, staring at the hotel entrance like it might spit out a different reality if I waited long enough. Like time itself might get bored and undo the last few minutes. My phone buzzed with a work email. Then another buzz. Life kept moving forward, insulting in its normality. I took a photo of his SUV's license plate. Then another of the time on my dashboard. I wanted the facts frozen, anchored to something objective. Proof that this wasn't a bad dream I'd exaggerated later. Then I left. I didn't want to be the guy who storms into the lobby and makes a scene. That's how you lose control. That's how you turn from the person gathering information into the problem everyone remembers. And I needed control more than I needed comfort. That night, Lauren came home like always. She said she was exhausted. She kissed me on the cheek. She went straight to the shower. When she passed by, I caught the smell on her skin, hotel soap. That clean, neutral scent that doesn't belong to your house, no matter how nice your laundry detergent is. I watched her slip her tote bag into the closet like she was hiding it from the air itself. I asked how her day was. Busy, she said. I nodded like I believed her. Then I did something colder. I emailed Nathan from my work account. Kept it professional. Neutral. Asked about a delivery timeline for an upcoming project. Nothing unusual, nothing personal. The kind of email that disappears into an inbox without a second thought. He responded within 20 minutes. Friendly. Upbeat. Absolutely. Ethan, we're on it. Like he hadn't spent his afternoon with my wife in a hotel room. That was the moment the anger changed shape. It wasn't rage. It wasn't sadness. It was strategy. Because if he could look me in the eye through an email like that, polite, relaxed, unbothered, then this wasn't some reckless affair. He wasn't panicking. He wasn't afraid. He thought he was untouchable. And when someone thinks they're untouchable, that's usually when they start making mistakes. The next day, I found the second phone. Lauren either got sloppy or she thought the lie had held. She left her tote bag on the couch while she cooked dinner. While she was focused on the stove, I walked past the couch like I was reaching for the remote and slid my hand inside the bag. My fingers hit plastic immediately. The old phone. I took it into the bathroom, locked the door, and stared at it like it was a loaded weapon. It wasn't protected by a passcode. It was locked with a pattern. And Lauren has a habit. She uses the same pattern on everything because she thinks she's clever and nobody notices. I tried it. The screen unlocked. My stomach flipped hard enough that I had to sit down on the closed toilet lid. Messages. Dozens of them. A long thread saved under Nate. Another under NC. Another saved under a woman's name that didn't match the tone or content at all. For a second, I wondered if he wasn't the only one. Or maybe she'd just hidden him behind decoy names. Either way, it didn't matter. My hands were shaking now, not from fear, but from that specific feeling you get when your life is being edited in real time and you don't have the power to pause it. I didn't read everything. I didn't need to. The first few messages were enough. Plans. Dates. Jokes about your husband. References to money. I'll cover it. Use the card. I booked it. Don't worry, he's too busy to notice. And then I saw something that made my blood go cold in a different way. A photo. Not intimate. Not graphic. Completely YouTube safe. But still a knife. It was a mirror selfie. Lauren in a hotel bathroom. Hair down. Relaxed. Wearing the necklace I'd bought her for our anniversary. The caption from Nathan sat right below it. You look like you were made for this. And under that, a screenshot of a bank transfer confirmation. To her. From a business account. The memo line read, "Consulting." That's when it fully hit me. The betrayal had layers. Emotional. Physical. Financial. And worst of all, it was organized. Clean enough to function. Sloppy enough to leave trails. I took photos of everything with my own phone. Screens. Names. Dates. Transfers. My hands were steady now, because something inside me had clicked into a mode I'd only felt during real crises. Save the evidence. Control the narrative. Don't react. Execute. When I put the second phone back into the tote bag, I caught my reflection in the bathroom mirror. It looked like a stranger wearing my face. Someone older. Sharper. Less forgiving. I walked back out, sat at the table, and ate dinner while Lauren talked about her coworker again. I nodded. I smiled once. I let her think she was winning. The next move couldn't be emotional. If I confronted Lauren, she'd cry. Deny it. Flip it on me. Suddenly, I'd be the villain who invaded her privacy. If I confronted Nathan, he'd go straight to my boss and spin it as me being unstable or vindictive. The only way to win was to make the truth unavoidable and to position myself so that when it came out, I wasn't the one scrambling. So I called someone I trusted for the right reasons. Not a buddy who'd hype me up. Not a guy who'd say, "Bro, go ruin his life." I called my older sister, Megan. She's a lawyer. Not divorce. Not the dramatic TV stuff. Corporate compliance. She's the kind of person who hears a mess and immediately asks, "What's the risk? What's the proof? What's the clean exit?" She picked up on the second ring. "Ethan, everything okay?" I almost lied out of habit. Then I remembered lying is what got me here. "No," I said. "I need you to listen." I gave her the bare bones. Second phone. Hotel. Vendor. Money. There was a pause on the line, and then her voice changed. Not softer. Sharper. "Do you have evidence?" "Yes." "Photos, screenshots, dates?" "Yes." "Good," she said. "Now don't do anything stupid. Don't threaten anyone. Don't confront. You're not trying to win an argument. You're trying to protect yourself." That word, protect, landed hard. Because I realized I hadn't been protecting myself for a long time. I'd been protecting the image of our marriage. Protecting the peace. Protecting her feelings. Meanwhile, she'd been protecting a secret phone. Megan told me to do two things immediately. Separate finances quietly. And document everything in a way that couldn't be accidentally deleted. Then she told me something I hadn't fully considered. If Nathan was paying Lauren, that could violate company ethics policies on both sides. Vendor bribery. Conflict of interest. Not necessarily criminal, but serious enough to trigger investigations and get people fired fast. And if I handled it wrong, I could get burned too, because I'd been the point of contact on projects that used his company. That was the real twist. This wasn't just husband versus wife anymore. It was a professional landmine. Megan connected me with an investigator she'd used before. Licensed. Discreet. Not a guy in a trench coat, but someone who knew how to gather facts without turning them useless. His name was Ray Collins, and he spoke like a man who'd seen every kind of human mess and learned not to react to any of it. We met at a coffee place just off the highway. Neutral. Loud enough that nobody listened. I slid my phone across the table and let the photos speak for me. Ray scrolled through them, nodded once, and handed the phone back. "This is enough to start," he said. "You want the cleanest win? You want a timeline that doesn't depend on your emotions." I asked him what he needed. "Dates. Locations. Names," he said. "And you need to decide your outcome." "My outcome?" I repeated. He leaned back. "You want a divorce? You want to keep your job? You want him gone? You want her gone? You want all of it? Pick priorities." That's a brutal question, because it forces you to admit you can't save everything. I didn't hesitate. "I want my job safe," I said. "I want out. And I want him to stop thinking he can do this to people." Ray nodded like he'd expected that order. For the next 2 weeks, I lived a double life too. By day, I did my job. I smiled in meetings. I sent emails. I joked with coworkers. By night, I saved evidence, opened a separate bank account, moved my direct deposit, and quietly gathered documents, tax records, contracts, statements, like a man preparing to evacuate before the storm hits. Ray did what Ray does. He followed Nathan, documented hotel visits, got photos of them entering and leaving the same places. Nothing explicit, nothing dramatic, just undeniable patterns that didn't care about excuses. Then he dug into the financial side. That's where things shifted. The consulting payments weren't random gifts. They were structured, recurring, predictable. They came from an account tied directly to Nathan's company, marked internally with a coded memo that looked like an expense category. Lauren wasn't just being spoiled. She was being paid. Paid for what? I didn't know. Maybe for keeping him quiet about something. Maybe for playing a role. Maybe because he liked control. But it changed everything. This wasn't just an affair anymore. It was a transaction. A second life with invoices. And the deeper Ray dug, the clearer it became that Nathan wasn't just risking his marriage or mine. He was sloppy enough to risk his employer. Vendors have compliance rules. Kickbacks and conflicts of interest get companies sued. And if my company got dragged into it, heads would roll. One evening, Ray handed me a folder and said, "You've got leverage." I didn't feel triumphant. I felt tired. Because leverage means you're about to pull something, and something is going to snap. The climax didn't happen in a hotel lobby. It happened in a conference room under fluorescent lights, where people pretend to be professional while their lives quietly detonate. Our company had a quarterly vendor review meeting scheduled. Normal stuff. Reps come in, present pricing, promise better service, shake hands, smile. Nathan was on the agenda because his company wanted to expand our contract. I arranged it so my boss, our finance director, and our compliance manager would all be present. "Big contract," I said. Nobody questioned it. That's the beauty of doing things calmly. People assume it's routine. Lauren didn't know any of this was coming. She thought she was in control. She thought I was busy. She thought my silence meant ignorance. That morning, I came home from the gym and saw her at the kitchen counter, sipping coffee, scrolling her phone. She smiled at me, soft, easy, like we were still the couple in the photos. I looked at her and felt a strange, clean sadness. Not because I wanted her back, but because I realized I didn't know who she really was anymore. She kissed my cheek. "Big day," she asked. "Vendor meeting," I said. "Sounds boring," she laughed. "Yeah," I said. "It is." She left for work. I left for mine. And I carried the folder Ray had given me in my bag like a weight that kept me upright. At 10 a.m., Nathan walked into our office wearing the confident smile of a man who believes his life is divided into clean compartments. Work here, hotel there, consequences nowhere. He shook hands, joked with our receptionist, acted like a trusted partner. We sat down. The meeting started normally. Slides. Numbers. Promises. Nathan talked about supply chain improvements, lead times, incentives. I watched him the way you watch a magician after you've learned the trick. Everything looks like a lie now. When he finished, my boss started to speak. That's when I slid the folder across the table, not toward Nathan, but toward our compliance manager, Angela. Angela opened it. Her eyes moved over the first page. She didn't react dramatically. No gasp. No raised eyebrows. Her face simply tightened in a way that told me she understood the implications faster than everyone else in the room. "What is this?" my boss asked. Angela didn't answer right away. She looked at me. "Ethan?" I kept my voice even. Flat. Professional. "It's evidence of a conflict of interest," I said, "and inappropriate payments from a vendor representative to my spouse." The room went silent, like someone had pulled the sound plug out of the wall. Nathan's smile faltered for the first time. He tried to recover. "Ethan," he said, chuckling lightly, like this was a misunderstanding between guys. "Man, what is this?" I looked straight at him. "You know what it is." Angela flipped another page. Photos, dates, payment confirmations, memo lines, hotel entries. Nothing explicit, nothing emotional, just facts arranged in the right order. My boss's expression shifted from confusion to anger to something colder. He wasn't reacting as a husband or a friend. He was reacting as an executive. He wasn't angry about my marriage. He was angry about risk. "Nathan," my boss said, voice low, controlled. "Are you paying someone connected to our operations lead?" Nathan opened his mouth, closed it. His eyes darted, just once, toward me, like he was calculating how much I had and how badly this could go. He tried a different angle. "This is personal," he said quickly. "This isn't. This doesn't belong in a business meeting." Angela cut in, calm and sharp. "It becomes business when money changes hands and there's potential influence on contracts." The finance director leaned forward. "How long has this been happening?" Nathan's face flushed. He wasn't prepared for this room. He was prepared for a husband having a meltdown. This wasn't that. I kept my hands flat on the table so no one could see the slight shake in my fingers. "I'm recusing myself from anything involving his company effective immediately," I said, looking at my boss. "I'm reporting this because I don't want our company exposed." That sentence mattered. It framed me as the responsible one, the person protecting the institution, not the emotional one seeking revenge. Megan had been right. You don't win by shouting. You win by being the person who keeps the building from catching fire. My boss nodded slowly. Grim. Decisive. "Nathan," he said, "we're pausing this relationship pending investigation. You need to leave." Nathan's jaw clenched. "You can't do that on." "We can," Angela said. "And we are." Nathan stood up so fast his chair scraped hard against the floor. He looked at me like he wanted to say something personal, something threatening. But there were too many witnesses. He grabbed his laptop and walked out, stiff and furious. When the door closed behind him, the room exhaled. My boss turned to me. "Ethan, why didn't you bring this up sooner?" "Because I needed facts," I said. "Not suspicions." Angela closed the folder, then said something that made my stomach drop all over again. "If the payments were coded as expenses," she said, "that could point to broader issues. Meaning Nathan might not be the only one. Meaning this might not be a one-man problem. Meaning this wasn't just an affair that crossed into business. It could be a culture problem. There might be audits. There might be lawyers." Everything suddenly felt like it could spiral in directions I couldn't fully control. For a brief moment, I wondered if I'd just thrown a grenade into my own career. Then my boss did something I didn't expect. He looked at me and said, "You did the right thing." And that was the moment everything shifted. I wasn't the man being ruined. I was the man who'd stepped out of the blast radius before the damage spread. That afternoon, Lauren texted me. "Dinner tonight? I can make that pasta you like." I stared at the message and felt nothing but clarity. No anger. No dread. Just a clean line in my head. I texted back. "We need to talk tonight. Please come home at 7. She replied with a heart emoji. It made me laugh once. A short sound, empty of joy. At 7, she walked in smiling, carrying groceries like a normal wife in a normal life. She started talking right away, about work, about a coworker, about some vague weekend plan. I let her finish. Then I held up the second phone. The color drained from her face. She opened her mouth, and I cut her off. Not with yelling, with a calm that surprised even me. I know about Nathan, I said. I know about the payments. I know about Chicago. I know about the hotel. Her eyes went wide, and she did exactly what people do when the script breaks. Ethan, listen. No, I said. You listen. That was one of the only short sentences I used. Because when someone finally takes their power back, they don't give speeches. They set boundaries. I told her I'd already separated our finances. I told her she'd need to find somewhere else to stay. I told her I'd started the paperwork. No drama. No threats. Just facts. She cried. Not screaming. Not hysterical. The kind of crying meant to make you remember the version of them you loved. I didn't bite. She tried anger. You went through my things. I nodded. And you built a second life. She tried softness. It didn't mean anything. I held up a printed copy of the transfer confirmations. Money always means something. She sat down like her legs had stopped working. What do you want? She asked, her voice small. I want my life back, I said. And you're not in charge of it anymore. That was the edge. Everything she'd been balancing collapsed. The end didn't come with a dramatic explosion. It came quietly, the way real consequences usually do. One door closing after another, until there's nowhere left to pretend. Lauren lost the house first. Not emotionally, literally. Not right away, but inevitably. The place she'd decorated, posted online, called our home was sold. She didn't get to keep the illusion that it had ever been hers alone. She lost routine, stability, the comfort of a husband who paid bills on time and planned for the future. She lost the protection of my silence. And maybe the hardest loss wasn't me. It was the version of herself she liked pretending to be. The careful one, the smart one, the woman who thought she could run two lives without paying for either. Nathan disappeared from her world faster than I expected. Once the investigation started and his company cut him loose, the consulting payments stopped. The nice hotel stopped. The card that someone else paid off every month suddenly became very real. That second life she thought was solid turned out to be rented. Temporary. Conditional. Built on someone else's money and someone else's lies. And when those dried up, so did the attention. Funny how fast people vanish when you're no longer useful. What she was left with wasn't freedom. It was reality. A smaller apartment. A tighter budget. Awkward explanations to friends who never got the full story but felt the fallout anyway. A reputation she couldn't manage anymore. She didn't lose everything all at once. She lost it slowly, piece by piece. That's worse, because it gives you time to understand exactly where you went wrong. Me? I gained distance. And distance is clarity. I kept my job. Then I moved into a better one. I stopped carrying stress that wasn't mine. I stopped checking someone else's mood before deciding how my day would go. I gained quiet mornings without lies sitting across the table from me. I gained sleep without suspicion. I gained a bank account that reflected my decisions alone. I also gained something harder to explain. Self-respect. Not the loud kind. The quiet kind. The kind that shows up when you don't feel the need to explain yourself to people who already made their choices. I didn't need revenge. Life handled that math on its own. I just needed to step out of the blast radius. The irony is this. She thought she was trading up. She thought she was smarter than the situation. She thought I was too busy, too predictable, too safe to notice. In the end, she didn't outgrow me. She underestimated me. And that mistake cost her everything she thought she was securing. I didn't win because she lost. I won because I stopped playing a rigged game. My life got smaller in some ways, and stronger in all the ones that mattered. I rebuilt it on things I could actually trust. My work. My discipline. My own word. No secret phones. No hidden accounts. No second versions of myself. And if there's a lesson here, not a speech, just a fact, it's this. People who build second lives usually lose both. People who walk away clean keep the one that actually matters. That's where it ended for us. And that's where it finally started again for me. Thanks for watching. If this story stayed with you, subscribe. More are coming.